pause a bit for this construction. Just going to make sure we're still recording. It's probably not that noticeable, in all honesty. I'll just wait for a couple of minutes, and if it doesn't stop, I'll just keep going. You were born to be my baby. Baby, I was made to be your man. We got something to believe in. Even if we don't know where we stand, only God will know the reason. But many must have had a plan. You were born to be my baby. Baby, I was made to be your man. All right, apologies. I'm just going to have to keep going with the construction in the background. Oh, it stopped. Great. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Hyperfixation, the podcast, your weekly deep dive into the niche and the eccentric. I'm here today to do another tier list. We haven't done a tier list since it was episode 3, and we covered every New Who, Doctor Who story. But I haven't done a lot of music on the podcast, and there's a few reasons for that, namely copyright. It's hard to talk about music without playing the music. But I feel like we can easily do this one. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about my favorite band, Bon Jovi, and we're going to go through all of their studio albums and rank them in a little tier list. And I'll give a little bit of trivia. We'll look at what singles each album had, and we're going to give my personal ranking for them. On the desk with me, I've got a wonderful Bon Jovi action figure, as gifted to me by my aunt. Thank you, Beth. Who is the other Bon Jovi fan in my life? I've got quite a few. My whole family loves the band, but she is a diehard. I think she was there at the Sydney Entertainment Centre in 1987 when they came out for Slippery When Wet, and she's been to most gigs since. So I will I'm sure I'll do a podcast episode with her talking about the band. But this is my personal ranking, and thought it'd be a nice way to sort of talk about it. Look, Bon Jovi is a band. They're one of the most successful rock bands of all time. It's not exactly niche or eccentric, but, you know, doing a deep dive into the albums and into their discography past Living on a Prayer is, I feel, somewhat semi-interesting. So let's get started. We might as well do it in relative chronological order. Now, I'm actually going to have to adjust this because it looks like... Yes, they forgot Forever. Yes, there we go. So I've amended it. So these are all of Bon Jovi's studio albums at time of recording from 1984 to 2025. Was that... Sorry, when did Forever come out? Was it 2020? I'm a fake fan. 2024, sorry. They released the deluxe edition last year, which had basically every song from Forever, but with a cover with another artist. So I think they had Robbie Williams, they had Bruce Springsteen, James Bay, a huge amount of artists, which is cool, you know, something for the fans, I guess. Look, I'll give pretty honest opinions about what I think about them as a band. I mean, I think it's been a long time since, I guess, their sound has felt really like an extension of the band as opposed to what is a commercial sound. I think basically since The Circle onwards, they have pretty much done... Each album has a very similar sound, and one thing that you can sort of commend them on is that as a band, starting in the, you know, hair glam period, they grew out of that and they matured and they changed not only their image but their sound, and the maturity of their storytelling changed as well. And as a band, they evolved and they adapted. And, had multiple generations of fans, but they just haven't had, I guess, another evolution really since. We'll go through the band, go through a bit of a history. If anyone's interested actually in the band and their history, really recommend the documentary. It's called Thank You Good Night. It's in Australia, it's on Disney Plus. I think in America it's on Hulu. But let's go through the albums. I've not amended this tier list at all. It's just a top tier S, bottom tier F, and then A, B, C, D, and E. We'll see if we use all these categories. So let's start. So Bon Jovi, the first debut album, single Runaway, and also the song She Don't Know Me. Look, this is very much a foray into commercial radio at the time. I feel like the band haven't found their sound yet. This album sounds sort of different to everything else they do. Even the next album, 7800 Degrees Fahrenheit, is leaning more towards the direction they're heading in, which is a bit more metal, like pop metal. Let's not get carried away here. It's all pretty light. We're talking. It's all pop rock, but this, like their first foray, is very much sounding like it could be on the radio. Runaway is a banger, but it sounds like everything else that sort of was popular at the time in terms of rock bands. So it's great because it's the first one, and the deluxe edition, which they released for the 40th anniversary of the band, is amazing. It's got some awesome stuff on it, including like the cassette tape writing demo, which is literally just John on a guitar just singing and playing it like in his bedroom. Really cool. That stuff was awesome, and that was great for fans to see. Like that's like the very beginning of the band. So look, I don't mind it. It doesn't offend me, but it's not, it's not their sound yet. It's very much them figuring things out and trying to make it, and it's got the energy, and it's got the vocals, the soaring vocals, the big guitars, the big hair. You can see the music videos when you're listening to it. You can see, the explosions, but it's a band in their immaturity. So I'm going to put it in C to begin with, right bang in the middle. Great. Okay, that's the first one. That's Bon Jovi. Next, we've got 7800 Degrees Fahrenheit, which if anyone wants to know why it's called that, it's because apparently it's the melting point of rock. Really cool stuff, John and Richie. Yeah, so at this point, Richie had joined the band. He had joined by the time Runaway was released. I don't think he played on the original Runaway single, but he played later for the album and then live with the band, and then became a songwriting partner from then. So the first one was released in 1984, Bon Jovi, and then the second one was released in 1985, and its singles were In and Out of Love and Only Lonely. Look, In and Out of Love I really like. There's a few things on this album I like, but it's I don't know. They released it very quickly after the first one, and it feels a little all over the place, in my opinion. It's not trying to say anything. It is just, we've got to get a second album out. So a lot of it sort of feels like they're scrambling and just trying to get whatever they can out. It's a bit rushed and not particularly my taste. I'm going to put in D. That era of music I really like listening to. So, I still find it enjoyable, but here we go. Apologies again. There is still yet more construction going outside my flat. This is what we're all here for. Slippery when wet. What can we say about Slippery when wet? It's nearly perfect. Look, there's a couple of songs in it that I maybe would change or cut. Social Disease is fun, but it's not as strong as everything else. It's just back-to-back bangers. I've got the vinyl here. We've got Let It Rock, You Give Love a Bad Name, Living on a Prayer, Social Disease, Wanted Dead or Alive, and then on the B side, side two, you've got Raise Your Hands, Without Love, I Die For You, Never Say Goodbye, and Wild in the Streets. It's back-to-back bangers. And look, there's barely a pause in it. Like, it's all just back to back to back to back. There's a couple of songs that aren't as strong as the others, but really that's only sort of Social Disease. But even that's fun to listen to. It's great. Just as an album, it's fantastic. And this is the band. This is them going, this is our mark, these are our songs, this is our sound, this is going to be our legacy, is Slippery When Wet. And honestly, even though they've reinvented themselves so many times and been able to adjust and adapt, the looming shadow of this album, eclipses everything else that they've ever done since. The singles were, of course, You Give Love a Bad Name, that was their first number one single, and then Living on a Prayer, and then Wanted Dead or Alive. Which they sort of released separately. I think, so a few bits and pieces about this album. There were a few working titles for it. There was they were going to call it Wanted Dead or Alive, and it's still out there. I think they released it all as solo images when they released it as a single, Wanted Dead or Alive. But all of these like wanted posters, which sort of is funny, where then how the Young Guns thing came around. So the cover album as well, the studio, this is covered in the documentary, and all the band members have talked about it since. Whether it's true or not is another story. I'm sure it's been heightened for, best narrative impact, that the studio made them do this photo shoot, which you can find photos of online, of this really weird pop, beachy, car wash thing with the band members and these scantily clad women, and they're all like, it just is icky and has nothing really to do with the album other than maybe Social Disease. You listen to Social Disease and you go, I think this is the only song that the studio listened to when they ordered that. So they scrapped the album cover last minute, and the cover is a rubbish bag, a wet rubbish bag, and John's written Slippery When Wet in it, and that's what they've taken the photo of. So that's the album cover, and that's why it looks like that. What can you say? This is the album that put their name on the map. They became international superstars virtually overnight. You Give Love a Bad Name became a number one hit. Living on a Prayer became another one hit, and surpassed Bad Name. And soon enough, they were touring everywhere. Look, this was 1986. This came out. This was the end of 1980. Sorry, so it was the end of 1986 when this came out. So we're in the 40th anniversary of Slippery When Wet, and actually I'm working on something at the moment which I'm going to release. Stay tuned. I think I'm going to release in October. I've got to check dates and everything, but that's when it should be ready to celebrate the 40th anniversary of it. Slippery When Wet goes easily into S tier. It's perfect. There's not much I would change about it, in all honesty. Get used to this ranking because we're going to be here for a while. Next, we've got New Jersey. It's a heavier album. They've lent a bit more into metal. Their vocals, their musicality, and their songwriting. They've taken sort of everything that really worked with Slippery, and they've jumped on it. And they've sort of enhanced it. In some ways, it's better than Slippery, even though the songs aren't they don't have the same legacy. So the singles came out in 88, and then the album, I believe, dropped in 89 as singles. Bad Medicine, banger. Born to Be My Baby. It's one of my favorite Bon Jovi songs, and I feel it's a little underrated. It sort of gets put under Bad Name, and I think Born to Be My Baby's fantastic. It's got all the same hallmarks as Prayer. It's got this story, it's got this narrative that's going through this whole working class struggle. We're going to get through it together. It's just you and me, baby, holding on. And which, I love. Who doesn't love that? And then this big soaring chorus. It's also got some of the best harmonies. And I feel like this album as well, in terms of the mixing, you get it a bit on Slippery, but this album in particular, they really, really nail John and Richie's vocals. Their vocals together just have this amazing quality and this amazing sound. Their voices are fantastic together. There's an acoustic cover on the deluxe edition of New Jersey, where it's an acoustic version, I think, of Born to Be My Baby. They did a few different acoustic versions as well on Australian Countdown. And they've done plenty of acoustic versions of their stuff. Like, they've done Living on a Prayer acoustic a billion times over. But particularly Born to Be My Baby acoustic sounds amazing. John's learnt a lot from the Slippery tour and the Relentless touring, and he's gotten a handle on his energy versus his voice. And so performatively, he's just soaring. And at this point, he's in his mid to late 20s. He's not very old, and to sort of navigate this really hard catalog of music already vocally, whilst, you know, keeping the energy and like doing the touring, like all of these artists from this era, it's sort of crazy to think how they sort of kept going. New Jersey, I'm sort of going to have to put it in S as well. I'm going to put it just behind Slippery. I don't think it's necessarily a weaker album. No, I think it's better than Slippery. I'm sorry. Oh, this is a tricky one. Okay, I'm going to put it behind Slippery. Let's not get crazy. And we'll see what else happens. Keep the Faith. This is an easy S tier as well. Keep the Faith is amazing. I love it as an album. Their sound is different. Again, they've grown up again. It feels like a progression, and their sound, they've put a bit more bluesy elements into it. There's a bit more funk. It's a different style. It's moved quite a ways away from the Slippery sound already, and quite a far away from metal. It's sort of, you can hear all of their sort of original inspirations in it. So there's a bit of Beatles, there's a lot of Stones in it, and a bit of Springsteen. It's very much become its own record, and it opens with this amazing song, I believe, is the opening track, and it's this great soaring song. But in terms of singles, we have Keep the Faith, which the title track, it's amazing and really interesting. It's one of their most interesting songs. Bed of Roses, which it begins like I'll Be There For You is their first proper ballad, and I love I'll Be There For You. Bed of Roses I like. The ballads don't hit me as much as the we're doing it tough but we're going to get through it kind of ones. Prayer, Baby, Born to Be My Baby. In These Arms is in my top 5, I think, Jovi songs. This is co-written by David Bryan. And it's just amazing. It's fantastic. I'll Sleep When I'm Dead as well is the other single, and all of those are great songs. It's I feel maybe their tightest album in terms of all their songs together. It's just fantastic. Before this, just to be clear, John had done Blaze of Glory. That was a solo venture. It won a few awards. It won a Golden Globe for Best Original Song. And he wrote a full album. Because I believe what happened is that he cameoed in Young Guns 2 and then said to Emilio Estevez, this is the story I think as Emilio tells it. He said to Emilio Estevez, oh, no, I think this is maybe Kiefer Sutherland, who was also in that film, tells it from his perspective. That John was like, I want to write all of the music for it. But I've also heard that Emilio reached out and said, I want to use Wanted Dead or Alive for this. And John said, I'll write you something else because it doesn't quite fit. So I'll write you something in the same vein. Let's do the cowboy rock thing, but, you know. So who knows what's true at this point. But anyway, John wrote Blaze of Glory, and it did very well. And the band themselves performed at the Oscars. Yeah, and Blaze of Glory is great. I love Blaze of Glory. But it's not the band discography or studio discography, so I've not included in this list. But yeah, Keep the Faith. Yeah, that's S tier. Again, Slippery When Wet is just this band-defying album that I feel like it's going to be hard for me to put something in front of it. You know what? I'm rethinking this. I'm going to put New Jersey in A. I know what's coming up. And okay, so currently as we stand, we've done 5. So we've got in S tier at the top, Slippery When Wet, followed closely by Keep the Faith. Then in A tier, we've got New Jersey. Nothing in B tier yet. In C, we've got Bon Jovi, the debut album. And D, we've got 7800 Degrees Fahrenheit. These Days is their best album. It's very 90s. So this was released in the mid-90s, and to their release in between Keep the Faith and These Days, they toured for a bit. They took a break after New Jersey. They took a bit of a break and then came back with Keep the Faith. It was a big image change up and a big sound change up. This was their first sort of evolution. They do like sort of once a decade, I guess is the idea, to fit more commercially in what's happening in the charts at the moment. And Keep the Faith was a big sort of step away from what had come previously. And it was very much a bridge between, it was very early 90s, very much like Friends when it starts. You know how it's like, oh, gee, this is in the 90s. And then These Days comes along and it's sort of this grungy, doesn't sound like their other stuff. This stuff has their best material, and also I feel their best performances, particularly vocally. The stuff between John and Richie is amazing. They're doing the most interesting thing with the vocal lines, with all of the parts. It just has some amazing songs in it. Something for the Pain, These Days, Something to Believe in, Hey God, This Ain't a Love Song, This Guitar Lies Bleeding in My Arms. They had released a song at the end of Keep the Faith. It's called Dry County, and I feel that very much that song was like, it's like a 9-minute epic. And they're like, right, let's do that, but as an album, and that's what These Days is. And it's sort of depressing as an album. It's very much, it's not this sort of tongue-in-cheek attitude that they've had up to this point, where it's like, oh yeah, things are really crap, but you know, we're going to get by. It's like, things are crap. Yeah. And I'm not going to pretend otherwise. It's a really interesting reflection, I guess, on life. And I feel this is one of the last times they've really got something to say as musicians and as artists. And like musically, it's the band in their peak. Vocally, it's unreal, especially John's vocals are just unbelievable. So just to clarify, in between Keep the Faith and These Days, they released a compilation album called Crossroads, and it was their greatest hits. But they also included Someday I'll Be a Saturday Night, which is my favorite song, and Always as singles. So they were the new tracks, and anyway, so that has just come, and now they release this, which is so far against their vein. And they rarely do songs from These Days after the These Days tour. I'm sure there's reasons for that. I don't imagine it was the most commercially successful album for them because it was so different. It hits differently than everything else in their catalog, so it'd be hard to put it. Also, vocally, it's so demanding that I imagine John has always liked doing long shows, like 2.5, 3 hour concerts. So from a vocal fatigue thing, yeah. Anyway, so the singles for this were This Ain't a Love Song, Something for the Pain, and then Lie to Me, which are good choices, I think. These Days, I think, is the best one on it. But This Ain't a Love Song. Oh, they're all fantastic, and it seems like it's an album from another band. Not that they don't have pure quality, but a lot of their brand is fun, and a lot of their material is fun, and is just feel good music. So to have something that I feel actually is trying to say something, it really sets it apart from everything else. So These Days easily goes at the top, and it's going to stay there. All right, and so they take a big break. They go on hiatus, and then they come back with absolute ferocity with It's My Life and Crush, which is it's going in A, easy in A, and I'm going to chuck it just I'm gonna chuck it in. I'm gonna chuck it just behind New Jersey, which is a tricky one. So the singles for this were "Thank You for Loving Me" and "It's My Life." It's great. It's really good. And I feel like they're now older men. They've all started to have kids. They're sort of in their early to mid 30s at this point. Are they? No. Sorry, they've sort of they're older and a little wiser. And this has some of my best sort of reflective songs in it. So things like Just Older. Just Older is fantastic. Captain Crash, I really like. It's look, as a live band, this album gives them so many great live songs, and I feel like from Slippery onwards, they really get this idea of live music, and so many of these songs just are, especially the songs that come after this, are another different level live because they're a live band. They always have been. So I don't know. It's just a fantastic album. It's really, really good. So I really recommend that. It's a broad listen. It's an interesting listen. I feel musically it's great. They're all they're firing on all cylinders. It's My Life is just great. It's mine a bit because it is so 2001. It means it doesn't, I guess, have the longevity that, say, something that sounds a bit more timeless than Wanted Dead or Alive, for instance, has. So that would be something that drags it down. The rest of the album doesn't sound very 2001. It sounds modern, but it doesn't sound like really bogged in its era. It was a very deliberate choice. It was very much we want something now, and something to reinvent ourselves. This is their big new single with bringing the talk box back. The talk box was a Richie suggestion. There are lots of demos for Living on a Prayer. You can find them on YouTube that they've released officially and semi-officially. It's the bass line. They can't figure out the riff. There's all these different versions where they're trying this guitar thing, like this, and like there's this one where they've got this synth doing this arpeggiator thing, like like a bit like a fast version of the Stranger Things theme over the dun dun dun, like the chord progression. But he's the one that suggested the bass line, and famously, this is they bring the talk box back for this one, and they bring it back every now and again, and I think I love the talk box, but yeah, Crush goes in. That is the right album, isn't it? Crush. It gets put in there. Also, what's not included on this is the live albums, which actually are probably what I listen to most out of most things. Again, their energy live is another thing. Bounce. I'm not the biggest fan of Bounce. I don't mind it. It's not my favorite, but I'm going to put it in C. And I'm going to put it just behind the debut album. This was released shortly after. This was as a bit of a response to 9/11, and sort of the artistic ethos behind it was the way America bounced back after that day. And this sort of starts where they go a bit hardcore Americana from here on for the next sort of decade. This is their Americana era, which is soft launch in Crush, with things like Captain Crush and the Beauty Queen from Mars. Like it's always been a part of their identity, but this is hardcore America. It doesn't speak to me like the others do. I'll put it that way. Singles from this, was it Joey? Oh. I don't have it on my... Oh, maybe this was Thank You for Loving Me. Yeah, I think this might have been Thank You for Loving Me. It's got some good ones on it, but it's not... This has ended their hot streak, I feel like. Like their hot streak of Slippery, Slippery Jersey, Faith these days, and Crush. That's their 5 golden ones. That's 5 amazing albums, and I feel like that's where things start to go. Have a Nice Day, I quite enjoy. I'm putting that in B. Who Says You Can't Go Home? Is Undivided on this one? It's possible. What were the singles? It was Have a Nice Day and Who Says You Can't Go Home. Both of them are bangers. It's uneven as an album, but it's certainly got its highlights. And it's probably my favorite cover, actually, out of all of them. It's the beauty is in its simplicity. And I haven't talked too much about the covers, but Have a Nice Day is really cool. I really, really enjoy it. All right, Lost Highway. This is their attempt at a country record. And I think they're the first rock band in America to top the charts, top the country charts. There's a lot I like about Lost Highway. You Want to Make a Memory might be my favorite one of their love songs, again, because of its simplicity. It earns all of its moments. It's really beautiful and slow. This spawned out of Who Says You Can't Go Home. They did a country duet cover of Who Says, and they released it as an extra single with Jennifer Nettles, an American country artist, who they joined forces again with for 2020. Yeah, it's got its moments, but the whole country thing, it's like we're chasing a bit of a fad here. It did have one of the best sets as a tour. Like they had, on the tour, they had sort of this bar sort of set. And for their entrance, they would sort of one at a time come in and then pick up their instruments and then they'd start going. And I was like, that was a cool intro for a live show and a live tour. I'm gonna put it in C because there's some. This is especially this album is where they start. In the early days, in the 80s and 90s, their stuff had an optimism, and like lyrically and narratively and musically, like their songs have an optimism, but it recognized where things were and where they were and where they had come from. And as they get older and richer, that doesn't quite work as much. And also as the band grows, as they become just this legacy band, effectively, this international phenomenon, everyone can sing, sing Always and Bad Name and Prayer. And it takes a new identity, and their music takes a new identity because of that. And this is where it starts for me, is Lost Highway, is this blinded optimism. It's like everything is great and everything's going to be fine, is sort of what the songs are starting to lean into, things like I Love This Town, which they play, at the end of a lot of their tour, a lot of their shows, even to this day. And it's just like, it's also got some of the dodgiest stuff on it. We Got It Going On. Musically is cool. It has one of my favorite Richie solos, which is a talk box solo. It has the worst lyrics, I think, of a Bon Jovi song. I think it's pretty, it's absolute poo. So, look, it's a real mixed bag. Now I've remembered about We Got It Going On. Yeah, I'm sorry, Lost Highway. There's a lot of good things about you, but I'm going to have to put you in D. Now, I sort of know where this has all fallen, so I'm actually going to get rid of row F, and the bottom row is row E. So that's the final one. And I'm going to change the color of S while I'm here to a nice Hyperfixation blue. There we go. Okay, The Circle. I really like The Circle. I always have. I'm going to chuck it just above. Just above B. This is sort of they've made a U2 album. I won't lie to you. It's pretty much a U2 album. They've gone, U2 have, they're a band from the 80s and they've been able to reinvent their sound for the 2010s. oh, let's do that. And they sort of have. There's some really good stuff on here though. If you can look past that, again, this hopping on trends thing. It's got some of my favorite stuff. So We Weren't Born to Follow. Okay, so The Circle, some amazing stuff on it. I mean, Love's the Only Rule is one of my favorite songs. One of my favorite Bon Jovi songs. When We Were Beautiful is great. Work for the Working Man's pretty crap. And like it's real sort of slap in the face. And everyone got really mad about Work for the Working Man, especially just because it's like, hey guys, you're really rich and this is showing you're pretty out of touch. This is when they're like, okay, we're just going to have to do the whole universal optimism thing. And they just don't have I don't know, they've got some great stuff here, but they're starting to run out of things to say, I feel like is part of the problem. And this is, from this album onwards, is pretty much what they sound like now. It's a bit more poppy, a bit more 2010 pop rock. And it's, I don't know, like, you know, as they go on, they lose their versatility. They lose a lot of their sounds, a lot of the amazing backing vocals, you know, the support of Richie, John and Richie's vocals together. And you're losing a lot of things like Dave Bryan's keyboards, Tico's drum stuff is becoming simpler, whether that's just because of the mix or whether just because the songs are simpler. I don't know. They're losing a lot of the things that made them musically really sound and really fly. In things like These Days, you listen to These Days and then you listen to this album and you go, these sound like two separate bands. John's voice is still good. Look, I mean, everyone talks about John's voice and we will talk about his voice. Obviously, it's a man. He's a man. He's a human, so his voice will change. I would say, like, peaks in These Days, and especially on the These Days tour, the Wembley concerts in '95 are, if you're looking for what was him at his best, it's hard to go past Wembley '95. That being said, vocally, I still think he's really strong, and like even up to like 2013, so they did The Circle, 2010, and then they did What About Now in 2013, and this is the tour where Richie left the band like sort of a third of the way through the tour, and then Phil X, who was Richie's understudy, I didn't even realize rock bands had understudies, but he was officially the Bon Jovi lead guitar understudy. He had done a few acts with them. I think he started on the Circle tour, playing with them, and then he, after that, became an official part of the band. Let me just recap what we've done with the tier list. So we've got S, A, B, C, D, and E. S tier is These Days, Slippery When Wet, and Keep the Faith. A tier is New Jersey, followed by Crush. B is The Circle and Have a Nice Day. C is Bon Jovi, the debut album, and Bounce. D is Lost Highway and 7800 Degrees Fahrenheit. And left, we've just got 5 more left. So, What About Now? What About Now is a tricky one. This is the album that they released in the tour that I first saw. This is where I became a fan, was this album. So it means a lot to me sentimentally. The single was Because We Can. Look, this is where their sound becomes pretty, not generic, but pretty much the default for them. There's stuff I like. Amen is great. That's what The Water made me. That's what they opened with. That was the first song I heard them do live. So I will always love that song. The Fighter is basically The Boxer. Paul Simon's The Boxer. There's some good stuff on here, but it's clear that it's also got one of the best album covers. It's really cool. What they're missing here a lot is Richie, and that's evident in the production, in the mixing, and just apparently he was pretty absent during this process. During the process of making this record, some of the guitar solos aren't even him. So whether there were just politics happening, whether he was himself unavailable because he wanted to be unavailable. Look, ultimately he left the band during this tour, so you know, it's sort of irrelevant at this point. It's the quality sort of shows. A lot of these songs, and same with The Circle actually, a lot of these songs came to life in the stadiums. and with a crowd that really found an audience and found what worked with them. But in terms of their catalog, it is weak. I'm going to put it underneath. I'm going to put it underneath the debut album. Don't put it. Yeah, I'm going to put it in the middle of C, underneath Bon Jovi. Oh, does it deserve to get lower than that? People hate this one. People really hate this one. I just don't, because it's the one I started with in some ways. No, I think it goes there. I think it goes in C. Burning Bridges. Now, they released this. It was a year after they were touring. This album is a contractual obligation. There was this huge falling out between the band and the record label, and this is a big FU from the band to them. It's mostly off cuts. It's sort of a not even worth considering part of the their discography. Self-admittedly, they're like this, just off cuts. They've got songs in it. Let's have a look what they've got in it. It's all just offcuts and B-sides and stuff they're not particularly proud of. So self-admittedly, they're like, this is our worst one. It's like their stuff. It's worth a listen if you're a fan, but otherwise, you feel free to give it a miss. It's got We Don't Run on it, which they bring back for This House Is Not For Sale, which is their next one. But yeah, it goes into E. It's probably the weakest one because it's self-admittedly the weakest one. This House Is Not For Sale. This is now the era they're in now. This is the post-Ritchie era. They're like, right, we're going to keep the band going. Ritchie is integral to the band, and not only his guitar, his vocals, or his songwriting, but like his presence, like he is as much part of the soul of the band as John is in some ways. I like to, if John is the brain, or John is the head, and John is the heart, and Ritchie is the soul of the band. And so without Ritchie, as we've seen, the band goes more into this default territory. So it's still got this drive, it's still got this energy, it's still got this musicality, but it's just not there as it was. Look, they're still there live. I mean, I went to the This House Is Not For Sale tour and it was amazing. They did a 3-hour set. They opened with... they didn't open with This House. They opened with Bad Name, actually, which I thought was interesting. And for the finale, the first finale, they did Prayer. And then the first encore, I think they did Bad Medicine and I'll Be There For You. And then they finished up with Blood on Blood and Someday I'll Be a Saturday Night. Great set. And it was sort of the set I needed to hear, I think, at the time. Just a great... Like, this tour I really liked as well. Like, everyone was talking about, oh, John's vocals have degraded. And you can tell there had been an age up since the last tour. They'd been away for a few years. He didn't have the vocal support of Ritchie. So the band sounds different. Also, one thing I want to say is also recordings sound different. Every year, like the quality in which we are hearing things is better, through speakers, through digital compression on YouTube. Like everything gets clearer. And so we're hearing things we're hearing things slightly differently to, if things were recorded today. So, look, all I want to say is also the guy, like, give the guy some slack over his voice. Obviously, he's not going to sound the same as he did when he was 35. This house I really like, though. There's some good stuff on it. I like the title track, This House, which I think was the single. There are some things that really annoy me on this one. I really like God Bless This Mess and Reunion. I think they're fantastic. We Don't Run's good. Also, it's also got When We Were Us, which I really like. It's a bit like a Blood on Blood Part 2, or Blood on Blood done again, but crap. But that was their We're Getting Into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame song. And it's a nice reflective song. And when Ritchie came back to do the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame performance and they did that together, it was magic. So I'm going to put it, I think it's better than What About Now. I'm going to put it in C above the debut album. 2020, this was a contentious record and it had an afterlife. So this was meant to start a big tour in 2020 and Bryan Adams was going to join them for the North American leg. But of course, March 2020 rolled around and plans were cancelled. And this is when John started to go through his vocal challenges. I think the band all called it challenges. 2020 is really reflective of the time. I think it is the most back to basic songwriting that they've gone back to since like the old days. I think there's some great stuff in it. I think it's some of their best stuff, especially post Richie. I really don't like Limitless, which was the single. It's my life again, but crap. But Do What You Can was reflective, but people were annoyed by it because it's like, oh, you're going all black COVID. American Reckoning, Beautiful Drug, Story of Love, Let It Rain, Lower the Flag, Blood in the Water, Brothers in Arms, Unbroken. It has some great stuff in it. I guess people don't think that the band and John are a voice for them anymore. I think is part of it. I think they're like, you're these old has-beens, from the 80s and 90s and ooze, and you're rich and you're out of touch, and what can you possibly have to say about life? Look, I'm not saying that's an unfair criticism. I think you need to look at people as humans as well as media entities, but obviously if you're making a lot of money, it's put yourself where your mouth is, not just where your money is. This Americana thing, this crappy photo of John, I don't know, I hate the album cover so much. I think they should have just gone and done a Heart and Dagger thing, in all honesty. Like a burnt Heart and Dagger or something. Like, I feel like the cover has nothing to do with the album as well. Like, it came out, I was like, what the hell? So, 2020 has some of their best stuff in it, I think, especially post-Crush. I'm going to put it, this is contentious, I'm going to put it above Have a Nice Day. I like it. I think it's better. And now we get to the final release, their final studio album as of this recording. And sorry, we're doing this because they're going on tour again. John's vocal issues, he's worked through them enough to be able to tour, do limited touring. So they're doing Madison Square Garden, I think, for 8 shows or something, and then going to Wembley. So they're doing basically big, sort of larger stretches of time in one place, in one big arena, doing a few big shows instead of just going everywhere and touring for like a year and a half. Forever, I really like Legendary, which is the single and the opening track. It's, again, the mixing and the production of the from The Circle onwards, everything's too poppy. I think the songwriting is often much better than the mixing gives it credit for. It's all, like, especially Legendary, there's some great piano stuff happening in it. There's some great guitar work. There's some cool vocal stuff. But the production just drags everything down in this synthy, poppy sort of mix. And so you're not getting the music. You're getting just sort of a sound, it's a commercial sound. And it's just, yeah, it's lacking soul. So it's got some good stuff in it. It's got some just like, whatever. I really like My First Guitar. I like Hollow Man. Living Proof, I really like Legendary. There's some good stuff on it. It does sort of feel like This House Part 2. Like stuff like Kiss the Bride. It's like, oh, so we did like a New Year's song on This House, and we did a like high school, like a graduation song, which is what Reunion was on This House. And so he wrote originally because he got awarded an honorary doctorate and wrote a song, and it's great. I love Reunion. But like Kiss the Bride is just like, oh, let's do a wedding song. And it's like, I don't know. Like, man, if you need to think of like events to do, it's like when I was coming up with different ideas for the podcast, I was like, oh, I need to do it around like, in International Shoe Day, and I'll talk about shoes, and I was like, that if that is the level I'm going to, I'm scraping the barrel for content, and I feel like this is where they got to. There's stuff like Walls of Jericho, which is all right. Look, it's a bit generic. The deluxe edition's great. It's great for fans. I'm gonna put this just above What About Now, and below Bon Jovi, the debut album. So, everyone, we have our final tier list. If they're coming back to Australia, John's hinted at it, but like whether they will or won't is a big question mark at the moment, just his health. So, also, for those of you who don't know, they talk about it a lot in the documentary, and he came out about it. His voice, they did some live shows in 2022 to promote 2020, sort of retrospectively, and he had significant vocal issues and vocal quality issues, and everyone of course noticed that a lot of the songs came out, a lot of the this is the other thing as well, it's not like you can rock to a gig and then it's this word of mouth thing, it's everyone's got a bloody phone and is just taking videos. So like, I mean, sure, it's cool for a fan of me to see, oh, Bon Jovi, they did a show last night and here is Living on a Prayer from that show. That's awesome. That being said, must make it so hard for any music artist, small little artists trying to make their way, on bloody Triple J Unearthed to these big international successes. It just must be so sobering and disheartening and difficult to navigate. That being said, like a lot of the songs they dropped completely in terms of keys. So live, they performed in original key up until I think 91. Maybe either the Keep the Faith or These Days tour, it was original key, and then they dropped it by a semitone. And then this tour then they changed all the keys basically. And there's stuff like Living on a Prayer that I feel really worked. John was singing the chorus, And look, ultimately it's Living on a Prayer. John doesn't need to sing the chorus. He's like the one person that doesn't need to sing it. Everyone else sings it. So, that being said, there was something about it that felt a lot freer. And now they've gone back to the original sort of D-sharp tuning. And I don't know whether that's a point of pride or whether social media has just made that problem a problem. Look, ultimately, everyone was going, what's happened with John's voice? And then it was radio silent until 2024. And then the documentary was coming out. And John announced that he had gone through significant vocal rehab and surgery. So he had an atrophied vocal fold. And so he's essentially been doing hardcore vocal rehab for years. And so this happened before 2022. And so he was doing these shows on an atrophied vocal cord. And the pain the guy must have been in, like, nuts. It's nuts. Obviously, like, he has climbed a mountain to try and get a touring voice back. Look, he's not going to sound how he did when he was 35, but I mean, in my opinion, if he puts on a good show, he puts on a good show. We'll see how much he's charging for tickets, but I'm probably going to go. Richie also said in an interview that if John fixed his voice and he was going back on tour, that he'd go back with him. Who bloody knows? I would love to see Richie back. But yeah, if we do a concert, I'll be sure to document it, and it might be a podcast episode. And I'll get Beth on and we'll talk about it. All right, this is the final ranking. We'll go from bottom to top. So in the lowest rank E, we have Burning Bridges. Then just above that in D, we have... So I'm going in ascending order. So Burning Bridges is the lowest ranked, and then the next one I've got is 7,800 degrees Fahrenheit, followed by Lost Highway. Then we go up to C, and we've got Bounce. What About Now? Forever. Bon Jovi. And then This House Is Not For Sale. That's C. And then B, Have a Nice Day, 2020. And then The Circle. And these are the good ones. This is the creme de la creme. A, Crush, and then New Jersey. New Jersey could go in S, but I'm going to keep it in A just to keep S, mint tier. And then at S, the top three, I've put Keep the Faith, Slippery When Wet, and then These Days. And that is my personal ranking of my favorite band's studio album releases. We've got some great stuff coming down the pipeline. As always, if you want to come on the show, please drop me a message. Send me something. There's a submission form on the website. Please let me know if you'd like to be a part of it. We've sort of built a little community over, the last 6 months, and I can't wait to keep going. So thank you and have a great week. We'll see you next time. Bye. Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in this week. Letting you know we have some playlists. So I've put together a little playlist based on this week's episode of some Bon Jovi songs. So please feel free to check it out. I'll put some links in the descriptions. As always, please feel free to check out the website, drop a comment, send a like, subscribe, all of those fun things. And please leave a review. It really, really helps us out. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great week.